Hello and welcome to the Toshogu Podcast, where we break down the latest news, breakthroughs, and ideas shaping the future of artificial intelligence. We are looking at a massive shift in the AI landscape today. The era of flashy AI demos is just over. Today, we are exploring how AI is growing up into serious, highly governed enterprise operating systems, complete with voice controls, reusable intellectual property, and real-world metrics that are changing how businesses actually operate. Let's begin.
Yeah, it really is a fundamental shift in how this technology is built and deployed. We're moving away from that whole Wild West phase of experimentation.
The playground phase is over.
Exactly. What we are seeing now is the rapid build-out of rigorous industrialized infrastructure. It's less flashy, but way more important.
And to really grasp that shift, I think we have to start at the foundational layer because before an AI agent can do anything remotely useful for a business, before you let it, touch a customer database or write a single line of code, it absolutely needs boundaries.
Oh, 100%. You need strict guardrails.
Yeah, and it feels like the entire market is waking up to the reality that governance isn't just a compliance checkbox you tick at the very end of development anymore. Governance is actually the core product layer right now.
It is. That is exactly the realization hitting the enterprise space right now. Think about what an AI agent is actually designed to do. It is designed to act autonomously, right?
Right, to do things without you having to click the buttons.
Exactly. It's supposed to make decisions on your behalf. But in a corporate environment, giving a piece of software absolute autonomy is honestly terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. It's an IT nightmare.
Yeah, so you need a highly structured control plane that dictates exactly what that agent can and cannot do. And we are seeing the major infrastructure providers completely re-architect their platforms to prioritize this.
So let's talk about how that actually works under the hood, maybe starting with AWS, because they've just introduced automatic refinement for their Amazon Bedrock automated reasoning policies.
Yeah, that's a huge development.
And the mechanics of this are what I find so fascinating. The engine doesn't just guess, it actually diagnoses failed tests and proposes formal logic corrections.
Right, it's highly analytical.
And they're stating that these automated reasoning checks can reach up to 99% verification accuracy, provided the natural language rules are translated unambiguously into formal logic. But what does that translation actually look like for someone building this?
It's a great question because the mechanism is really the secret sauce here. When we talk about formal logic, we aren't just talking about giving the AI an English instruction like, hey, be careful with our customer data.
Right, because human language is way too squishy for that.
Exactly, it's too ambiguous. The automated reasoning engine literally translates your business policy into mathematical proofs.
Wait, literal math?
Literal math. It defines absolute, rigid mathematical constraints on the agent's behavior at the runtime level. It cannot deviate.
Wow.
But, and this is the critical detail AWS included, every single policy change proposed by this highly accurate system still requires human approval.
Okay, I have to stop you there and push back on that a bit. If we have a system capable of mathematically proving its accuracy to 99%, doesn't requiring human approval defeat the entire purpose of building an autonomous agent?
It definitely sounds that way at first.
Yeah, because if you or I have to sit there and manually sign off on every single policy refinement, aren't we just creating a massive new bottleneck?
It sounds counterintuitive, but it's actually achieving the exact opposite. Think of this as the new agent governance baseline.
Okay.
If you are an enterprise buyer, you now expect this baseline, which includes a strict inventory of agents, data access maps, permitted actions, audit logs, and yes, rigidly defined human approval points before you will even consider running a pilot program.
So it's about trust.
Precisely. The human approval on policy changes ensures that the boundaries themselves aren't mutating autonomously in the background. It perfectly secures the perimeter so that the agent can operate incredibly fast and freely inside that perimeter.
Oh, I see. That makes a lot of sense when you frame it as securing the perimeter. Actually, it reminds me of the invention of brakes on a car.
How so?
Well, you don't put brakes on a car just so you can drive slowly, right? You put brakes on a car so you have the confidence to drive it much faster, safely. Without brakes, you'd never push the accelerator to the floor.
That is the perfect analogy. The brakes enable the speed. And we are seeing this exact brakes concept being applied across the entire industry right now. Take Microsoft's Project Perception, which just entered public preview.
Right, they are tackling agent governance by weaving together specialized cyber models with frontier cyber models, binding them with a shared security context, right?
Yeah, plus an agent harness and specific action layers.
And the numbers coming out of Project Perception are wild. For their MAI Cyber 1 Flash configuration, they're reporting a 96% score on the CyberGym benchmark.
Which is massive for that benchmark.
But even more impressively, it operates at nearly a 50% cost reduction compared to their current MDASH configuration. For those trying to make sense of the alphabet soup here, how does combining models actually lead to a 50% cost reduction?
It comes down to resource allocation. Frontier models, like the massive super intelligent ones, are incredibly expensive and computationally heavy to run.
Right, you don't want to use them for every little thing.
Exactly. Specialized models are smaller, cheaper, and faster, but they have a very narrow focus. By using a shared security context, Project Perception knows exactly when to route a simple task to the cheap specialized model and when to escalate a complex threat to the expensive frontier model.
Ah, so it's smart routing.
Yes, and it proves that adding these heavy governance layers doesn't bloat the system. Structurally, it makes the architecture vastly more efficient. And, this shift isn't just happening at the tech giant level. It is trickling down into the automation platforms that everyday businesses use.
Right, look at Make, the automation platform. They just rolled out a feature called Private Spaces. It's essentially a dedicated environment to isolate automation and AI agent development.
Yeah, it gives you expanded audit log coverage and real-time alerts the very second another user accesses a connection or a key.
Which seems basic, but it's huge.
The most telling part about Make's strategy, though, is that private spaces are being made available across all of their plans.
Oh, so not just the enterprise tier.
Exactly. Isolation and security are no longer being treated as premium features. They are foundational expectations for anyone building automations.
And if you want undeniable proof that this is where the massive capital is flowing, just look at Zenity. They are a vendor that specializes entirely in agent security, and they just raised a $125 million Series C funding round.
That's a massive round for this market environment.
It is. Their revenue has tripled in each of the last 2 years, and they are on track to do it again. Their adoption is heavily concentrated in large and regulated enterprises, which absolutely proves that agent security isn't just a feature of a model. It is a massive funded standalone category.
Exactly. When you go to market today, the commercial product you are selling isn't just the agent. The product is the agent wrapped tightly in identity management, permissions, auditability, and escalation protocols.
So we've firmly established the boundaries. We have the brakes installed. But what fuel are we actually putting into this engine? We need to look at how these highly governed agents actually access and comprehend your enterprise data.
Yeah, this is where we transition from isolated governance to semantic infrastructure. Because for a long time, if you wanted an AI to know about your company, the standard approach was what the industry calls classic RAG, or retrieval augmented generation.
Okay, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around this correctly. Is it fair to say classic RAG is basically an open book test?
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Like the AI gets a question, and it just frantically flips through thousands of PDFs and documents looking for a specific keyword match to stitch together an answer.
That is exactly what it is. It grabs chunks of text based on keyword similarity and feeds them to the model. But classic RAG is rapidly becoming obsolete, or at the very least, it's just the absolute bare minimum table stakes now.
Because it doesn't actually understand what it's reading.
Right. Frantically flipping through pages to find a keyword lacks any true structural comprehension.
Yeah, and the alternative to that frantic PDF search is what we are seeing with new semantic data products. Instead of just searching for text matches, it's like the AI actually comprehends the subject matter and has memorized the underlying formulas of your business.
Exactly.
Google's new Cortex framework, version 7, is a prime example of this shift. They just made it generally available. It is specifically designed to take incredibly complex SAP ERP data and SAP Business Data Cloud information and package it into semantically enriched data products inside BigQuery.
We really need to unpack what semantic enrichment actually means for a business, though.
Yeah, let's do that. Because SAP data is terrifying to look at.
It is notoriously massive and messy. It's your global supply chain, your HR systems, your financials. If you just feed raw rows and columns of that data to an AI, it's completely meaningless to the model.
It's just noise.
Exactly. The Cortex framework acts as a translator. It turns that raw operational data into trusted business entities. It establishes relationships and metadata. So instead of seeing a random string of numbers, the AI sees this is Q3 revenue for the European supply chain, and here's exactly how it was calculated.
Yeah.
And multiple agents can then consume these semantic products simultaneously.
And the sheer scale at which Google is mapping these relationships is staggering. They also made data commons on Spanner Graph generally available. Listen to these numbers, because they're crazy.
Go for it.
We are talking about an infrastructure that includes over 400 billion statistical observations. It has 1.7 billion nodes and 2.6 billion graph edges. They've also introduced a preview of the Data Commons platform that allows you to combine your own private knowledge graphs with this massive public one. But for anyone listening who isn't a data engineer, what does having 2.6 billion graph edges actually do for you?
If you want to understand your business holistically, an edge in a knowledge graph is simply a relationship. It connects the dots.
Okay, so it's the string between the pushpins on the corkboard.
Perfect way to visualize it. So instead of the AI just finding a document that mentions the word revenue, it inherently understands how revenue is mathematically, logically, and historically connected to, say, supply chain delays in Asia or marketing spend in Europe.
It gives the AI context on a planetary scale.
Exactly. And the AI accesses all of this rich context through MCP tools, model context protocol tools.
But here is where it gets incredibly interesting. Because agents aren't just getting better, more contextual data, they're actually being equipped with skills as governed intellectual property.
Yes. This is a massive shift. Reusable agent skills are emerging as a completely new unit of enterprise IP. We are moving entirely away from people writing isolated, clever prompts.
Right. Prompt engineering is kind of fading.
Exactly. We're moving toward structured, versioned instructions that an agent can execute perfectly every single time.
Google recently detailed how they build and govern these Google agent skills. They are standardized, open-source instruction packages that encode incredibly deep domain knowledge specifically for coding agents. That repository just passed 15,000 GitHub stars.
Which shows incredible community traction.
It does. But it's not just isolated to coding anymore. Internal teams are now creating these governed skills for content transformation, complex SEO workflows, and automated reporting.
And Red Hat is doing something very similar over in the infrastructure space. They published a guarded command execution pattern for their RHEL MCP server.
What does that do exactly?
It allows for AI-assisted system troubleshooting. So the AI can actually help fix a broken server. But crucially, it wraps strict safety controls around the actual system actions the AI is allowed to take.
But this raises a huge question for me, and I think for anyone listening who runs a business. How do you actually protect your intellectual property if you are building all these complex workflows on top of someone else's foundation model?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. If the brain belongs to Google or OpenAI, what exactly does your enterprise own?
That is the pivotal realization companies are having right now. The enterprise moat is no longer the foundational AI model itself. Those models are becoming commodities.
Like electricity.
Exactly. The true moat consists of these versioned, tested, repeatable instructions, the skills combined with your unique semantic data layers.
Because selling or protecting an isolated prompt is completely indefensible commercially, right? Someone will just copy it.
Without a doubt.
Right.
But a proprietary library of skills that perfectly executes your company's unique historical lead qualification process, fully integrated with your tools, permissions, tests, and failure conditions. That is a permanent, highly defensible digital asset.
So we have the guardrails firmly in place. We have this rich semantic knowledge and these reusable protected skills. How does this actually translate to real-world action?
This is the fun part.
Right, because if the AI is so smart and safe now, how do humans interact with this highly structured machine without just, typing into a chat box?
It translates directly into real-time execution, particularly through advanced voice interfaces, and it results in measurable operational throughput. The typing bottleneck is being eliminated.
Let's focus on that voice aspect first, because OpenAI just detailed the architecture behind GPT-Live, which is their full duplex voice system. And full duplex is the absolute magic word here.
It really is.
It means the system can listen to you and speak to you simultaneously.
Which fundamentally rewrites the interaction model we are used to. Old voice systems were half duplex. They function like a walkie-talkie.
Like, over your turn.
Right. You speak, you wait, the machine processes, the machine speaks. Full duplex allows for natural interruption, just like we are doing right now.
But the real superpower of the GPT-Live architecture isn't just that it sounds natural, right? It's that it can delegate deep reasoning or tool use asynchronously in the background.
Exactly. It maintains a stateful interaction without blocking the flow of the conversation.
So the AI can be talking to you, actively listening to your response, while simultaneously diving into your database to pull a customer record without ever pausing or saying, please hold.
Yeah, they're using this exact same foundation to support computer control and agent coordination in their desktop app. And that technological leap is what turns voice from a fun novelty into a serious, real-time control surface for complex operational workflows.
I have to admit, I am highly skeptical here.
Why's that?
Do people really want to talk to an AI for complex workflows? I mean, we have all experienced the absolute soul-crushing frustration of traditional automated phone trees. Press 1 for sales, press 2 to pull your hair out.
We all have the scars from those systems.
Yeah, so why would this new generation of voice agents be any less frustrating?
It's a completely fair hesitation given our collective trauma with automated phone trees.
Yeah.
But you have to understand, this isn't for basic branching FAQs. This is about seamless workflow execution.
How does that look in practice?
Imagine you were running a service business or a medical clinic. This voice agent doesn't just read a rigid script. It dynamically qualifies leads based on the conversation. It schedules appointments by checking real-time availability in the background. It updates the CRM with notes.
Oh, wow.
And if it hits a complex exception it can't handle, it smoothly escalates the call to a human with all the context attached. It can continue this workflow across different channels. It's an entirely different category of interaction.
Okay, I can see how that completely changes the game, especially if you are running high-volume customer operations. But buyers are getting ruthless. They don't just want a cool voice demo anymore. They are demanding hard operational proof before they spend a dime.
Exactly. The era of vanity metrics is over. Operational throughput evidence is the new mandate for any AI project.
And the data we're seeing on that front is staggering. AWS and Formula One just published a production case study that is honestly mind-blowing. Formula One used an agentic data accelerator to handle the massive process of onboarding new data sources. Previously, this process took their engineering teams 6 to 8 weeks.
Let's break down what that 6 to 8 weeks actually entailed, though. It wasn't just sitting around.
Right.
It was manual data wrangling, complex coding, mapping relationships, and running integration tests for massive streams of telemetry data.
And with the Agentic accelerator, that time frame shrank from 6 to 8 weeks down to approximately 40 minutes of code generation, followed by a few hours of human deployment and review.
That is the ultimate definition of cycle time compression.
The agents are now handling 95% of that workflow completely autonomously. The developers are still in control, obviously, and crucially, GDPR classification is embedded from the very start of the automated process.
Which takes care of the compliance headache instantly.
I am genuinely amazed by that metric, going from 8 weeks of manual labor to 40 minutes. That is like replacing a grueling, multi-month cross-country horse ride with a commercial flight. It completely redefined what is possible for a team to accomplish in a single workday.
And that's exactly why enterprise buyers are demanding this level of proof. Cycle time reduction, autonomous completion rate, backlog reduction, and exception costs measured in actual human minutes saved are the new mandatory KPIs. You simply cannot sell generic productivity anymore without providing a measurable baseline.
But these massive efficiency gains in places like Formula One and major global enterprises aren't just staying isolated at the top. They're trickling down aggressively into smaller businesses.
The industrialization of AI adoption is moving downstream very quickly. What used to require a massive IT budget is now being packaged for everyday companies.
Microsoft is leading a huge push here with a program they call Copilot in 30. They made this generally available through their cloud solution provider partners. It's targeted specifically at organizations with fewer than 300 employees.
Right, the SMB market.
Exactly. What they are offering is a 25-user, 30-day trial of Microsoft 365 Copilot Business, completely supported by use case guidance and evaluation resources. But what does a 30-day trial actually look like for a small, say, 100-person clinic or agency?
What's critical to note about Microsoft's motion here is the shift in strategy. For a smaller organization, this isn't just about turning on a piece of software and hoping people use it. They are packaging AI adoption as a repeatable, partner-led process.
So the partner does the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Over those 30 days, the focus is on actual workflow redesign. The partner helps a small business identify exactly which repetitive tasks are draining their time, establishes basic governance, and proves the value mathematically before the trial ends. They aren't selling licenses. They are selling measurable workflow optimization to SMBs.
But as this incredibly powerful technology scales up in capabilities and trickles down to literally every small business, it naturally invites heavy regulatory scrutiny.
Unavoidably.
The U.S. government is now firmly stepping into the arena. Reuters reported that the U.S. administration has finalized details for voluntary cybersecurity tests on advanced AI models. They invited major players, Meta, Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google, to a meeting on August 4th to discuss how this will roll out.
It is important to note that the specific metrics, the exact reporting processes, and the public disclosure rules of this government framework weren't immediately published in detail. But the defining characteristic of this framework is that it is entirely voluntary.
And that is the part that I really don't get.
Why is that?
Why does a voluntary testing framework matter at all to these massive tech companies? If there are no legal penalties for ignoring it, won't they just brush it off and continue doing whatever they want?
It matters deeply because even voluntary frameworks create a powerful, immediate procurement signal in the broader market. The government doesn't necessarily need to levy fines to change behavior.
How does that actually play out in the market, though?
Once a government standard exists, even a purely voluntary one enterprise procurement departments across the country start adopting it as their own internal baseline.
Oh, I see.
Insurance companies will start demanding adherence to these specific cybersecurity tests before they're willing to underwrite cyber risk policies for an enterprise. Vendor questionnaires will suddenly require evaluation evidence and incident transparency matching the government framework.
So it cascades.
Exactly. If you are an AI provider and you want to do business with a Fortune 500 company or a major bank or a regional hospital, you will have to show that your models pass these voluntary tests because the buyers will demand it. The market standard shifts organically, making compliance a commercial necessity to generate revenue rather than just a legal mandate.
So it's less about the government threatening fines and more about the entire B2B ecosystem collectively saying, if you don't meet this specific standardized baseline, we simply won't buy your product.
Precisely. Model providers will increasingly have to differentiate themselves through this kind of rigorous evaluation evidence. It becomes a massive competitive advantage to be the most transparent and rigorously tested platform on the market.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. From mathematical formal logic acting as the essential brakes on enterprise agents, to rich semantic data layers completely replacing frantic PDF searches, all the way to full duplex voice interfaces and unimaginable 40-minute deployment cycles in Formula One.
It all points toward a very unified, undeniable trajectory for the future of business operations.
And before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought that really crystallizes everything we've explored today. Think about this massive market convergence. Semantic context, reusable skills, governed tools, and runtime evaluation. If the foundational AI models, the actual brains of the operation, are rapidly becoming completely interchangeable, commoditized components that anyone in the world can access, then the actual value of a business in the future won't be the AI it uses.
Right.
The true defensible value of your business will be the operating system you build around that AI, the semantic data structures that hold your history, the governed skills that map your workflows, and the custom tools that secure your operations. So the ultimate question you have to ask yourself as you look at your own organization today is, are you just building a fragile prompt that can be copied and replaced tomorrow? Or are you building a permanent or reusable asset? That's all for today's episode of the Toshogu Podcast. If you enjoyed it, like this episode, subscribe, and join us next time for the latest in AI. Until then, keep building what outlives you.